meetings being conducted in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. The Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its annual reorganization meeting held on January 9th, 2018. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona City Times, the Star Ledger, the Herald News, the Township of Verona, and the Verona Education Association. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted in each of Verona's 6 schools, the board office, and town hall. This posting was also sent to the above newspapers, all STA presidents, and STA liaisons. The Verona Board of Education operates under a consent agenda format. Any board member has a right to have an item pulled to be voted upon or discussed separately. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public present. Mr. Day?
Here.
Mrs. Bernardino? Here. Mr. Elliott?
Here.
Mrs. Fresky? Here. Mr. Quattrochi?
Here. Okay, welcome to our August meeting. We have an agenda full of beginning of year appointments and resolutions to do, and we have a couple of committee reports. So before we start, do we have any public comment or question on any agenda item? Guys, always sit all the way in the back. Okay, let's do superintendent's report.
Good evening, everybody. So in preparation for, this is the last meeting we have before obviously we open up school. September 4th is the first day for our staff. And we'll be kicking that off with breakfast in the morning at 7 o'clock here at the high school cafeteria. And then we have convocation, which begins at 8 o'clock. And then we have a number of meetings that will go on throughout the day in order to support our staff. And then there's time for our staff to be in the classrooms to just finalize the details to be prepared for the students. First day of school for the students is obviously Wednesday, September 5th. And all of the work over the summer leading into the beginning of the school year, all of our schools look fantastic. So I've had an opportunity between last week and this week to just make some more rounds. Everybody's on track. There's still some more things to do, but we're getting there, and the schools are looking fantastic. And as I mentioned at the last meeting as well, kudos to the township because they've taken on an immense responsibility and helped us out here at the high school with our facilities. They used to years ago maintain the athletic fields, and then once we added the turf to the upper and to the lower field, they no longer maintain that, but they've been very generous enough to maintain all of the grass on the perimeter and in the front of the high school. So it looks great, and they're really doing an amazing job.
I drove by on, I guess, the last 2 Mondays, and I saw the whole crew there,
Yep.
you know, going full bang, trying to knock it out. So they did a great job. It was wonderful.
And they were also at some of the other elementary schools today, you know, helping out there, you know, doing some mulch delivery and just really helping the staff out. So it's an immense help. Yeah, so it's great. So the schools are looking great. The bleachers are pretty much done. There are a few finishing touches on the repainting of those bleachers, so that's finalized. A few minor things to do, but they look really good. The lower field restrooms, the rough plumbing has been done, and a lot of the construction has been done. We expect that to be completed within the next 7 to 10 days or so. So at some point by next week, those lower field restrooms should be ready to go, hinging on obviously getting the clearance from the township with the permits.
I have a question, I don't know if it's the right time. In regards to the lower field and baseball field, wasn't there, if I'm remembering correctly, the fence behind the batter's plate wasn't high enough, or is that the regulations, the balls are still going over?
Oh, on the softball field.
Yeah, foul lines.
It was actually the backstop.
But the
So-
ball's getting outside of it there.
Right, so if on foul balls on that lower field, the way the dimensions are for the regulations through the architects, it's not just a Verona situation, we just unfortunately happen to have a parking lot and a street behind us.
Yeah, so the regulation is correct.
So there are some things that could be added. It will negatively impact the play, which is the concern. So you could put an additional overhang that extends out over home plate. But the people that we've spoken to who actually play on the field will not be happy with that, because that will affect fly balls and pop-ups, and it will negatively and adversely affect the game.
Signage of.
The only way that you could really do anything is, if you notice, like on in Cedar Grove, on Bradford, they have those really high poles with netting. And I mean, They go up quite a bit. They're like big telephone type poles. That is a solution. That's a very costly solution, and aesthetically, some of the feedback we've received is that that wouldn't be very well received. So, and I can understand why. So things moving along very nicely at all of our schools. Schools look like they're in great shape and they will be ready to go. Ms. Nardino and I have the past several weeks dealt with that recent storm that came through here in Verona and many areas. So our school district did get impacted by that. Forest Avenue, I would say, probably took the biggest hit. Verona High School as well. We did have a service company come out immediately on Sunday, and they worked really hard. They did a great job in really cleaning up our schools and making sure that they were maintaining and, you know, replacing carpeting, replacing ceiling tiles, disinfecting everything, drying everything out, sheetrock that was damaged, cutting that, replacing it, etc. So we went through, we did lose a number of supplies. There were areas throughout the district where we lost some floors through groundwater that came up and popped those tiles up. So that has been replaced or is in process, and it will be ready for the beginning of school. Sheetrock that was damaged, replaced. Area rugs replaced. Everything that was damaged, Ms. Nardino has worked with the insurance company to expedite and to replace these items, so that way we're ready to go for the beginning of school. And then Ms. Nardino will take care of the reimbursements through the insurance company over the next couple of months as we straighten all of that out. But the insurance adjuster actually came out maybe about a week ago on Sunday.
Yeah, so they're still working on, and we haven't ordered all the items, so it's what they're waiting for is for us to provide all the invoices on what we purchased, so.
And you would be doing that all in one submission of everything that we do for the whole district.
Right. And what, the most damage here in the high school actually was in this room, and you would never know it. So they were very diligent about getting in here right away and cleaning up and.
With water coming in through the roof or?
Through the roof. Yeah, so you almost can see the seam right up to where that round disc is. They pulled up all of this carpet, all the way there. They had to clean all the way back this way on the bookshelf, so they did an amazing job.
So you actually can't tell that these are carpet squares. So that's why we're able to pull these up and they blend together so you can't see the seam. So we're able to, our crew was able to take it, disinfect it, dry it out, dry the area, clean the floor, and then replace it.
When we did the referendum in 06, 07, 08, we went with carpet tiles in every space where we put carpet down, just in case this happened. So if you go to Brookdale Media Center, you'll see the squares and HBW, so.
We did have a tile floor down the hall. The floor started popping. It was an original asbestos floor, so we did go with a special company that obviously does asbestos abatement and replacing the flooring. That's all taken care of. And in Forest Avenue School, where we had carpet in the basement, we replaced it with a tile floor. Because if we're ever gonna get water down there again, let's stick with the tile and hopefully you can salvage it. Because there are times that if the floor is not old, the floor tiles don't always pop and you don't always have to replace it. Or if you do, you could just replace certain sections. So it's more cost effective. And it's a little bit easier to maintain those sorts of type of areas, especially in the basement.
And in terms of the supplies, the teachers won't be waiting for anything, because the supplies that were lost at Forest were those big paper rolls that they used to do the bulletin boards, but there were many on a rack already. These were ones that were sitting on the floor. There was a couple cabinets that they ordered, a couple area rugs, but we ordered that yesterday, I believe, so they should be in next week.
Any questions? Any further questions on the storm, the damages? Okay. And the deductible on our insurance policy is $50,000?
$50,000.
Okay, so our responsibility is $50,000 because the original cost was on that.
Well, when
Service
they came
company.
in, when the service company came in 2 days later for us to sign off on the contract, it was preliminary numbers at that point, and it came to $50,600. It's all right, yeah. 600 back.
And that did not include floor replacements, sheetrock
No, it's just the
replacements,
cleaning.
materials.
But is there any way to get like aid potentially for that from state aid, apply for anything?
Is that deductible 50,000 per incident, or is that a per year deductible? Is it good for the year? In case anything else happens?
expanding any funding. I know that with FEMA, apparently there had to be at a minimum 25 homes in Essex County that were impacted by the storm. And once that happened, then it opened up to businesses to apply for FEMA loans. So it's not that they're gonna get funding. No, low interest loans to apply for. So that's why I don't see that there's any.
We did talk about some finance as well, kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but if you recall, a couple of meetings ago, we had discussed the extra aid that we received from the state and that we allocated to special education. If those funds are not necessarily needed for that down the road, we could move that around from budget line to budget line to cover the expenses.
Good. Moving along to park reports, the park assessment reports, we did receive them. They are in paper copy, and we obviously get them digitally as well, but we received the paper copies, we have them, so that way we can now, in the coming weeks, we will be mailing those out as their requirement to all of the families. That should go out around mid-September, gives us enough time to get it all processed with the opening of school and meet statutory requirements. There are some potential changes, likely changes that are going to be happening with park, and the reduction, the number of assessments at the high school level that are required, and also the reduction in the amount of testing time. The reduction that they're proposing is about a 25% reduction in testing time, and that the high school graduation requirements will be limited to a proposal of only the English Language Arts grade 10 and the Algebra 1 as a requirement in order to be able to, and even if a student did not pass it, they're still eligible to graduate through the portfolio or alternate assessment, but they must sit for the actual test. Otherwise, they cannot take advantage of that alternate assessment. But that's at the state board level right now. We would expect that we're going to probably hear a little bit more on that in the coming weeks, maybe 2 months or so.
What happens if a student didn't sit for a test for whatever reason? Can they go back and take it at any point?
Yes, we actually had students this summer. We had a testing window that was opened up, and we had students in the past few weeks in August come in, and Mr. Stevenson administered the assessment for them. And so a student may have at the time opted not to take it,
Right.
and they sat through it now, just in case. So if they pass it, then they meet the requirement. If they don't pass it, now they're eligible for, they sat through the
Okay,
test.
great.
Yep, so we make sure that we follow up with all of our families to make sure that they're aware of the guidelines, because we don't want any surprises when they get to senior year.
Is there, for the algebra assessment, the students that take it in HB, that counts as their qualification, right?
That does.
They don't need to go back and take it again in high school years.
That's correct. They would have satisfied that requirement when they took it. So if they took it in 7th grade, which we have students in 7th grade or in 8th grade taking that, they've satisfied the state requirement.
And for the other test, the language test, that's not pegged to a particular grade class, is it?
It is only for grade 10.
No, that's who has to take it.
Correct.
Can a student take it in grade 9 or 8?
No,
They
you
cannot.
can only take it in grade 10.
So the only.
That is subject specific. They're all subject specific. The difference with the math portion is that math curriculum core sequence varies by district. In high achieving districts like Verona, we have accelerated tracks for a multitude of options for students, so you could take it as early as 7th grade, or 8th grade, or 9th grade, or 10th grade. But that doesn't exist for the English language arts. That is very grade specific. So we have an ELA 9, ELA 10, ELA 11.
Right, okay, so to Mr. Elliott's question, then, if a student did not sit for it in grade 10, they could take it in grade 11, and not grade 9.
Correct. So you can take it after you've taken the course. You can't take it prior. The past 2 days have been, over at HBW, we've had really great presentations by our administrative team and teaching staff. We welcomed our new staff orientation. We provide 2 days every single year. A number of different topics we do as an overview. We talk about our district expectations, curriculum, lesson planning, classroom management, technology, teacher evaluation model. It's an opportunity to ask questions for our new staff, really an opportunity to acclimate them to the Verona community, to ensure that they're as successful as possible here. And our administrative team, several members every year, they alternate, but they even take them on a bus tour of the community, really to show them where all the elementary schools are, where the neighborhoods are, really get a flavor for what Verona is all about. And it's very, very successful. Today was day 2, and the teachers have had an opportunity as well to get into their classrooms and to get things ready there. And we've had a number of other teachers who typically this time of year they're back into the schools and back into the classrooms and getting everything ready. So things are going very, very well there. So new staff orientation was very successful this year. And then last but not least, we do have a resolution on this evening with regret. We have Dr. Bangia, who's our supervisor of our humanities department. She oversees English, social studies, and world language. She has resigned from Verona. She's going right next door up to Caldwell. She's taken a promotion there as director of secondary curriculum. And we're very, very sad to see her leave, but we wish her well as she continues to pursue her career pursuits. And we are very, very sure that she's going to be a great asset to Caldwell as she's done incredible, incredible work here over the past 7 years with us and with our faculty. So she will be deeply missed. She's done a great job here, and we wish her very well. And that's it. We did post for a replacement last week, so we'll post it for a few weeks. We'll start the interview process, and within the next few weeks, depending on what the applicant pool is, we'll close that application up, and then we'll create a search committee for that position. So Dr. Banjo will be with us for at least 60 days unless we can find a suitable replacement earlier than that. I spoke with Dr. Heinig right up the road, who's their superintendent, and they're ecstatic to get her, and I told him to stop poaching our people. He couldn't promise that, but we have. So he's very happy, and Dr. Banjo is happy to take on the next chapter.
Anything else? Any questions for Dr. Louise? Okay, we have some committee reports, education and special ed.
Yep, so education met this week, and as always, it's divided into 2 portions, Mr. Mariella's portion and Mr. Miller. So I'll start with the special ed portion for Mr. Moriello. When it was really very short, he just reviewed out of the 85, approximately 85 paraprofessionals, we had some resignations, and he's going to contract out for temporary replacements for 5 open spots with Delta T, while he tries to get permanent people back into those positions. Preschool enrollment is status quo at 12 students. There is a wait list, so if there's any movement over the next few weeks, if anybody moves out, and that would bump up any students waiting on a waiting list. As far as special attention or any counsel or mediation that's going on in district, we have one case that's set to go to trial towards the end of September, and there's 3 possible pending mediations that have to do with students around different issues, whether it be mental health or school refusal, and that's throughout the whole district. We have no students right now, obviously, on home instruction. It's the summer. There's 2 possible out of district placements that Mr. Moriello is waiting on. We did have a tuition credit, which doesn't happen often. So there was the extended school year program. We had a credit back of $9,828. The $9,800 we had to pay back $2,700. So we still have a net gain there. And that was it for that portion. And Mr. Miller's portion was relatively brief this time also. There's a new policy, some changes in the harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy. So I don't know, that's on resolution number 17. So I don't know, Dr. Dini, so if you want to speak to what those changes are.
Sure. So typically, resolutions for board policies and regulations have 2 readings. So this policy is the first reading tonight. This is change in statute at the state level. So there are two significant recommendations that were made at the state level. We're still waiting for Department of Education guidelines on what they're going to be recommending on how districts should be recommended to handle it. The first piece is you cannot submit an anonymous report for HIV, for harassment, intimidation, or bullying. So no anonymous reports can be used in order to initiate an investigation. So that's the first one. The second piece is that counter to the prior law, if there was somebody who alleged that HIV was going on, whether it was another student, a parent, a community member, administrator, it doesn't matter who it was, there was very little to no latitude in investigation. So you would have to go investigate it, which runs counter to common sense, because there are times when you know that there's a conflict that's occurring between two people, and it typically tends to be a code of conduct, but because of the nomenclature utilizing the word bully, all of a sudden the train has left the station, you have to go and investigate it as an HIV investigation and follow the statutory requirements. That no longer will be the case. So the state has now said that the principal has a level of discretion in determining whether a situation will be investigated as a code of conduct or HIV. The fact of the matter is that the way it would be determined is, does the principal have evidence that the matter that's being explained as bullying, does it meet one of the distinguishing characteristics? So for example, the law is written as a distinguishing characteristic would be race, religion, color, sexual orientation, gender. There are other categories as well within the law. So those are the two distinctions. The challenge right now is that we're approving the policy as a first reading tonight. Second reading on September 11th, we'll finalize it. This is required under state. So Strauss Esme is our policy company. We pay them every year, and they take care of all of our policies for us. They have a legal firm there. So they're making a recommendation for this to be approved, and we will await the guidelines. And in the meantime, the Strauss Esme does believe that within the next week or two, those guidelines should be coming. And then we can take a look at those and then administratively take a look at how we're going to implement those guidelines that make sense here to us in Verona.
Can you take a minute to clarify a couple of things about what you said, that investigating an incident as a code of conduct topic as opposed to an HIV infraction, right? It still continues to be the case that any infraction is a code of conduct infraction, by definition, it wouldn't be an infraction. Of the ones that are code of conduct infractions, some of them are coded as HIV violations as well. You would never have an HIV infraction that was not a code of conduct infraction, by definition. Right, so HIV is a classification of a disciplinary issue or behavioral issue, right?
That's correct.
And then with that, on the anonymous complaint bit, if we were to receive an anonymous, if somebody raised anonymously an issue that seemed to have merit, we are still able and should investigate the thing and check it out, right? Which you cannot do according to this, though, is you cannot use an anonymous source as justification for an HIV classification.
That is correct.
If something still happens that's wrong, it's still wrong.
That's correct.
Okay.
Anybody else? The next thing was involving any changes, new or adopting of curriculum, and that corresponds with resolution number 21. And they're listed in the resolutions. The two that I would point note to that were completely new is the grade 6 word study, which is curriculum that revolves around vocabulary. And Spanish 1 and 2 is going to have an adaptive program, so it would be suitable for all levels of learners. Dr. Dinicio already spoke to the park and those reports, as we said, are going to be mailed home mid-September. The evaluation and observation instruments, those were being updated to align with custodial and the paraprofessional, so everybody's on the same 4-point scale for when they do evaluations. Also, Mr. Miller met with the teachers that are going to be mentoring our new staff, and he met up with our mentors to review their roles and responsibilities and how to build trust. And the first meeting for the new staff is going to be right Thursday, September 6th. So that will start right off supporting our new teachers. The comprehensive equity plan is something that just confirms that we're compliant, and we renew that every year. So that got done. And then if Dr. Dini said you want to just put a little clarification, it's resolution number 6, and it's just additional tuition money. So just to clarify why we have that here.
Yeah, so resolution number 6 is based on approval for tuition for 3 staff members. That was agreed upon. That's agreed upon through their contract. And the amount that they were reimbursed for last year was short based on the credit. There's graduate versus doctorate credit, and what their contract stipulated, we paid them the lower value, and we're supposed to be paying them the higher value. So this compensates them for the shortage that the district was on last year.
Adjustment.
Yes.
And that is all I have for education. John, did I?
The only thing that's worth noting is, Mr. Miller, one of the takeaways from the meeting that we had was that Mr. Miller was going to publish to the committee, and we got it yesterday, I think
Oh,
it was.
that's full.
There's like a 2-year rolling schedule in advance of what curriculum is due to be revised, reevaluated, articulated, whatever the case is. So we just got that yesterday. Committee will go through it at probably the next meeting, and then
Yeah,
we should
he
certainly.
needs to guide me through that. Too many tabs to handle.
10 minutes.
And we're good on education. Any other questions before I know?
Okay, the athletics?
Yes, we do. Excuse me. So it was very brief. The fall sports are all up and running, and I think at this point they may have all had scrimmages, getting ready for their, start up of the school year. I'm going to skip over freshman sports for a minute, because we'll come back to it. There's also resolutions tonight for the softball field trip. There's a few personnel changes with some coaches, cheer coach, lacrosse coach, and a volunteer assistant girls lacrosse coach. You'll see in resolution, I believe it's 26. And then we also talked about the revision to the HIV policy, which Ms. Resky already spoke of. The other thing we discussed was freshman sports being, I know the term like pay to play becomes, it's like, what does that mean? And we kind of brought it up at the last meeting. We spoke in athletics about it, and then Ms. Fresky and I had a conversation about it, and I think as the athletics committee, we would like to recommend freshman sports being 100% paid for by parents, and having that be more consistent at this time. So, I don't know if you want to save that for discussion, we want to talk about that now.
Do we have agreements with the parent groups on those sports? Some of them, at least.
For the freshman boys soccer, for the lacrosse, for the hockey, and then,
It's not lacrosse and hockey, because that's
oh,
not,
sorry,
that's
okay,
not
the
freshman
freshman boys
sports.
and freshmen.
It's
It's
girls and boys soccer and basketball.
It's only those 2 sports,
Yes.
right?
But
So there's agreement.
3 teams,
Basketball and boys right now.
like the soccer, boys and girls.
Right.
So there's no girls freshman basketball right now.
Right, and then where do we have agreements in place with parent groups?
Boys and girls soccer. Boys and girls soccer for freshman sports
And basketball's paid for by.
by the district.
And you
For
say,
boys.
to go back and
There's no girls.
correct.
Well, there's a couple of things. So the way that freshman sports are kind of making a comeback hasn't been consistent really. So basketball was funded by like I guess a corporate donation for a year, and then just made its way into our budget. So we've been paying for it. So then when soccer came to be, an agreement was made for boys soccer, which was to to have parents pay 100% the first year, 75% the second, 50 the third, and 25 the fourth year. And then so for girls soccer, the same thing kind of played out. You know, what I was saying is in hindsight, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the team is different every year. So by the time that freshman team that started playing they're already out of high school by the time the board's paying for it. One, I know financially we can't really afford it. If other sports come forward to say, oh, we want a freshman team, I think we need to be consistent in how we're doing that. So for basketball and soccer, I think it should be consistent, and moving forward, to have it just be freshman year to pay for it.
Right, but we
I
have
don't
a-
know how that works with the agreement with the parents.
Yeah, so we have a couple, so one is we would be going back to two of the three teams and saying we want to change the agreement. Right? So there's an agreement. There. And the reason why when we did the agreements, the reason why we sent it on 5 years, in the agreement from start to when it would be fully funded by the board, is to make sure that there was continuity in the program. Because one of the problems we've had years ago is where, and I want to say, girls softball comes to mind, where you'd have a team, everything was fine, and then in year 2, you barely had a team, in year 3 and 4, there was no team, in year 5, it came back, because of lack of participation. So the purpose of having the agreement over 5 years was that if it dies because you don't have participation, then it dies, and then there's no team. You can't build a team, there's no team, there's no team, there's no fee, if there's no fee, there's no cost of the board either, right? That's the purpose of the 5-year term. But I think we made the agreements with the parent groups, in good faith, and we should honor them, my personal view. The total cost of freshman sports is about somewhere just on, rounded up, called $25K. And, every dollar is important, but from a tax burden point of view, that's like less than $5 a year. It's not a lot of money. So
Yeah.
maybe one of the things to look at is what's the perceived benefit of having a program like that for freshmen that wouldn't play on the JV or the varsity team? And if there is participation, then there's a demand for it, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, like, you can call it $25,000 and it might be $5 to the pocket, but, what it might mean is we just cut, like, teaching staff, someone from 100% to 80%. That money there was a cut.
Well, we did do that, but part of the rationale to do that was because we had not.
Enrollment, I mean, I get there's other issues in doing it, but I'm just saying, we did have to make cuts, so I do think every dollar counts. And I think being that freshman sports can be 1 year a team, 1 year not a team.
Right, but that was the purpose of having the 5-year role on the
Yeah,
agreement.
but
There's
it's-
no team, then there's no
The
team.
different set of kids, to me, makes me think, why not just have it paid for every year by parents if they want to have freshman sports?
And if there's not enough freshmen, if there are freshmen and there's pay to play and parents decide not to, those kids would get rolled into JV. So it's not like you would have.
Not necessarily, they would get cut.
Or they would get, so it would actually be more competitive on getting.
Right. So they can only carry so many students on the team. So there are times where we have to make cuts and based on the number of kids, even when we have freshman teams, because we just don't have enough spots for the students and student athletes, and it wouldn't be fair to them over a certain number because they're not going to get playing time. They're going to be practicing every day and not be able to get into the game. So they do try to carry as many kids as they can because we want to keep the kids engaged, but there are times where we have to make cuts.
And I just feel like ultimately, with freshman sports kind of coming back that way, lacrosse and hockey, the board taking on, it's our athletic budgets keep going up and up and up. And that money is coming from other places.
One of the options we talked about is the activity fee, which Language does and West Essex does and for most folks. So we can have some more dialogue about that topic or, how we can minimize the impact of freshman sports.
Personally, I've never been a fan of pay play. I think that we have a popular sport and we should have it. I don't see anything yet that's changed my mind on that. I understand the argument that you made, but that's something that I would support.
So how does this work?
Well, I think the last time what we did was we said, we had athletic committee the other day, and we said we're gonna schedule our next athletic committee meeting for September. And Ms. Nardino's going to be part of that meeting as well. So that way we can have more discussion on it in athletic committee, and then go over the budget. And then talk about the pros and cons, and look at all angles on it. And then from there, the board can decide the level of discussion that you wanna have on the topic, and then where you wanna take it from there.
I mean, I think we have a plan in place with 2 teams, but I think maybe going forward, we could set up a policy or some kind of procedure if somebody approaches us or there's enough players for a certain sport.
Yeah, we did that with swim team. We did that with swim team last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, but that's not particularly just freshmen.
Right. I just don't know, I understand the rationale seemingly how, I mean, you're looking for, to me, it seems not entirely arbitrary, but somewhat arbitrary. Okay, like freshmen.
Well, because there weren't any freshman teams, they were all kind of dismantled because of whether it was financial or,
Right.
participation.
I think it was
And then-
post-budget cut, 2010, 2011?
And then
It was
one
really
came back,
participation.
but then you had one
There
come
was
back
participation.
funded,
Participation.
Yeah.
one came back funded, and then I guess there was no discussion that just became a part of the budget. But then that didn't happen for all other teams, and then some came back and parents are paying, and parents, like,
So we mentioned here a couple of districts that do pay for play, and I know we've been talking about this for years, but do we have that information on what
yeah.
what each?
We do.
Okay.
This has come up before in athletics, so
Yeah.
I could take a look to see what that Excel spread, where I have that Excel spreadsheet. I
Mr.
think we
Ripler has
reached out
looked at different,
to other school districts, and we have what they charge and who it includes. So from an activity fee standpoint as well, the other thing that the board in discussions would have to grapple with is, if there were to be an activity fee, that it may not just be limited to, it's at the board's discretion, athletics. It can also apply to clubs and, the arts program. So there are different districts handle it in a different fashion. But the other thing that athletic committee has spoken about in the past is that already existing in Verona is an incredible amount of support. When you're talking about these sports programs,
Every.
and your parents are supporting it through fundraising and out of their own pocket.
Yeah, I'm just, I was before the NPA, or Music Parents Association, we hand out invoices 2 days ago and said, this is how much you owe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that Mr. Quattrochi had
So
brought about.
it is a activity, and I bet, like kids that play sports, but I would be like.
It's similar in other sports, depending on the sport, obviously.
Right, and that's, Mr. Quattrochi had brought that up years ago too, is what is it that these other organizations are buying? And not only is it the sports organizations, but it's the SCAs, what are they buying?
Yeah.
That we don't know.
and part of that is they're in charge of that money and choosing what to do with that money, like, we're not. So I had looked back, I have 3 boys, they all play sports. And granted, we choose to do certain sports with them and that are not, maybe affiliated in town, and spend well over $3,000 a year, $2,200 on one child alone for the year,
For the free
probably
sport.
more.
That was for the free one.
Well, this is before they get to high school. Like, you play lacrosse, you're paying,
So
you
that's
play.
wrong with us, so when you're in high school, we were talking about the fees you pay.
No, I'm just saying, but I would say 99% of high school athletes have been playing that sport and don't start freshman year, right? So parents are already used to paying for that child to play lacrosse or Eagles or suburban basketball and rec basketball and whatever else, whatever other sports.
What you're saying is that before high school, you're paying
You're
a lot of money for the sports, and you get to high school, and then you say.
And it's not that you're not paying, because you are paying, because there's
Well, you're paying,
fundraising
you're still
fees and
doing
other
okay.
things,
Okay,
but
okay.
it's, I spend thousands of dollars a year, and they get to high school, and I just think, looking at our budget and looking at finances, like, something's got to give, and I don't think it could be academic, and I think something's got to give somewhere, that just.
I mean, again, just because of, how much is it, it's because of the NPA, we just approved our budget of 25,000. This year, just over about 100.
What is the VMPA paying for?
They're paying, we give a stipend to all the band directors for the extras they want to bring in, if they want to bring in specialists. We also pay for, that's significant. We do give out scholarships, which obviously is not, extra above and beyond, but that's one of the key mandates. And then, uniforms as well. I know that the district helps out, but we help to pay for those, especially for the guard uniforms that the gym
you're counting what the BMPA provides from the BMPA fundraising, that's in addition to what the participants pay for those.
Oh, sure,
services.
that is just what the BMPA said.
So my point in the previous years was, you need to be careful about this, I understand what you're saying, but the way I look at it is I've got a participation desire, I've got a limited number of sports, and when I'm running sports that don't have a competitive team, right, at least in terms of numbers and quality. When it comes to the things that are quote unquote free, they're hardly free. I know what I paid for band, I know what I paid for cheerleading, I know what I paid for track. I can tell you it's not free, right? And our overall spending for all things co-curricular, which includes activities and clubs, ranks us right in the middle of the pack statewide of the districts, 70-odd districts that are like us, and second from the bottom in our comp groups. So I agree that every dollar is precious. My personal view is, when you're running a district where your total spending is the lowest 10 in the state, which is where we are.
But it's a
We
high
have-
percentage of our discretionary funds.
I'm sorry?
It's a high percentage of our discretionary
Because our
funds.
discretionary funds are
Are so
woefully-
low.
No, our
Yeah.
discretionary
No, so
funds
I
are
get it.
woefully inadequate, and therefore, it's important that we fund the things that we want to fund through special questions, so that we build it into the budget in an enduring way, otherwise every year, you'll be looking to cut the next. If you take, let's say you eliminated all spending on co-curricular, you'd recover one time about $400,000, like something like that, one time. That would get gobbled up easily into healthcare and payroll, and then now your baseline is that much lower. And then the next thing is, my building maintenance of certain discretionary repairs is the only thing that's in there. Again, that would be to me, that would be a healthy budget. So it's something to think about, but I would caution that the free things are hardly free.
Yeah, not free.
And in the world of the 13 or so categories of spending that the state audits and reports on, this is not a lot of that.
But ultimately, I think we need to then somehow increase the discretionary funds
Correct.
because
That's,
it is inadequate.
Yep.
The co-curricular and athletics portion of that is giant, in my opinion, of that discretionary, and that is the money that then comes out of classrooms. Like, that's the money, discretionary funds is what goes,
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it goes the other way around. I think every year we've taken
yeah, but
discretionary.
discretionary, that's where that money goes.
But
Yeah,
by definition, the discretionary budget is discretionary. So
Discretionary.
if you look at what we budgeted and where we ended the year, it always gets taken down through the year. Because we have discretion to not spend on certain things.
But we're not spending on sports.
Correct. That's right. Because it's an optional program.
Yeah, but to say that we're not funding the classroom.
No, but I'm just saying, that's the money that comes down though.
The schools each have a budget, they spend it, I don't recall that we're lowering the budgets for each building, I mean, that's what we're talking about, their supplies, I mean, is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking
What
about
is not,
our discretionary budget.
yeah, but what is not being funded in the classroom?
I don't know what's coming out of there, because if that's getting lower, then something's not going someplace else.
I'm just saying that we're not funding sports at the expense of classrooms, I would argue that's not true.
I don't think we can look further into discretionary, where the money's going and how much comes out of there during the year, and where else it is going.
So, again.
We're buying textbooks, if we need textbooks, we buy textbooks. If we need computers, we buy computers.
Training.
Training, we get training, I mean, so those, so we're funding our classrooms, I don't think anybody's gonna, because that's not discretionary, those are not discretionary, those are things that we need to run the district. Discretionary becomes actually a very small category in itself, so the fact that sports is a high percentage of it kind of makes sense.
Well, the topic something, consider, look at it in finance and its kind, look at it in athletic committee and its roles, look at it from a community resources point of view, and then see if there's a consensus on it. Is that it on athletics?
That's it.
Building and grounds?
We did meet, but really, Dr. Dionisio covered, virtually everything with the exception of, no, thank you, I'll make it really short and sweet, make up some time, it's very warm in here. That we've had, we've had some roof issues that were not related to the storm, and we've had, Trumco, an organization out you forgot that. to look at that, and actually they've been on site this week, I heard,
Are you working back from a date on when you would aim to get it on the ballot?
Not really.
We'd like to.
We like,
Last time we talked about, sometime, I think it was March.
yeah.
March or May, I think you had
Yeah,
mentioned for the
but
budget, for
what-
the referendum dates.
Right, but I think that ship has sailed now,
Yeah,
because we're
something
going
like
into
that.
September, and
That's
part
right,
of it
not
is,
really.
the board has to decide, are they gonna spend the $70,000 that it's gonna cost to pay the architect to do all the pre-referendum
Yeah,
planning?
so that's all part of the package that we're waiting for
Right.
at the committee.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Well, more people discussion on that.
Yeah.
Finance committee?
No, I just one thing to add on that too, I know that, we had talked about pest management, and I think we hired a company to have, come in once a month to continue to make sure that, pest management is being, taken care of. Plus, I think we've, worked with the, custodial staff on, some procedures regarding entertaining games, make sure that there's no food and making sure that there's some, procedures being followed. So again, that was something that came up, and we want to make sure that was, brought up around making sure that that pest management is being taken care of. And that's it.
Finance committee?
It was brief. I mean, we talked about the insurance claim for $50,000.
Talked about some ongoing legal, costs and
Ongoing
projections.
legal costs.
Right.
You know, that we'll make public when we can.
And there was a closing note on the audit, there's two trajectories on audit. One is on striking our final budget, auditing the final budget year number, right? And that's soon,
Mhm.
right? October, beginning of October, I think, something like that.
The audits are due in December, but they're gonna wrap up in November.
No, for just to strike our, just to validate, just to audit our budget.
Oh, okay,
financials.
yeah.
Right, and then the November date is the full audit, which gives procedure, audits as well.
Right,
Right.
correct.
And they're working on that now.
Mhm.
Okay, do we have any discussion items? Okay, let's do our resolutions.
Resolved that the board approve resolutions number 1 through resolution number 33, and addendum resolutions 1 and 2. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Fresky, seconded by Mr. J. by a nose. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. On resolution number 24, we're changing the out-of-district placement from one school to a different school. So is the overall change more money or less money to us? Is it costing, what's it want to need? It wasn't exactly clear in front of me. Unless I was not reading it correctly.
So
Yeah.
this is, so this one is the total, that's the total cost
Yeah.
But
for
what
the
were we
student
paying?
in the new school. What the resolution does, that tells you the resolution is for the new cost, it doesn't tell you what the old cost was as a reference.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying,
You're asking
is
what
our
the old cost
change
is.
more or less?
Are we allowed to put that in the resolution?
It wouldn't be a resolution, because you're not voting on what you spent, right, you're voting on to approve the spend going forward.
I'm just,
Right, so from a resolution point of view, that would be the resolution, but from an information sharing point of
Yeah.
view, you can get that number from,
Right, that should come up in committee.
yeah, so, is-
to the.
we get that from, Mr. Morello, being so, and, you know,
Okay, the other one that I have. The exclusion. So I just have a question on 2.5 on reallocating days, and I completely understand, and I guess it's more of a, I should have brought it up in this context, I guess, in the discussion item. When we reallocate any days, is there a financial cost to us as a district? And is this, because it's come up several times on resolutions, so I'm just wondering what that does cost us.
So the reallocation days is permitted under the contract, the collective bargaining agreement with the Verona Education Association. the requests have to come to the superintendent for review and approval from the staff member who is requesting it with obviously a legitimate reason. Oftentimes they are for medical reasons, to reallocate the days, to utilize for a medical illness that's documented. The cost to the district would be the cost of the substitute for that day, which is $90, plus paying that staff member's salary for those number of days.
And then nothing, if it turns out that the staff member, or whomever requests that, doesn't need all of them, then it just reverts back, or it doesn't go into their carryover to.
So the way the contract reads is that the superintendent may approve 5 days, up to 5 days, and the superintendent also has discretion to approve even more than those 5 days based on extenuating circumstances and the district's budget and the situation. Oftentimes when I approve these days, I can't speak for superintendents prior to me, but if I were approving these days, I know for a fact that this staff member is actually going to utilize these days and be on payroll deduction for days beyond these days. So they're going to be out more than these 5 days.
But I think a part of your question, especially, was do unused days go into some pool? And the answer to that is no, only the designated sick days,
Okay.
which is protected by statute. Any other days are using and losing.
Thank you.
I had a quick question on resolution item number 21. I'm not on the education committee, but I saw this Sunday program. Is that what exactly is that?
So the Sunday program is a new program that we're adopting in the district. So you've heard us speak a lot about, over the past 4 years, Gillingham multi-sensory reading intervention program. We now, through partnership with Fairleigh Dickinson University, we are on our current second year of our second cohort, so it's the 4th year of providing professional development support and training to staff members in the district at primarily the elementary level that become skilled and trained in Gillingham, which is really the foundation of the multisensory approach. Among others, there's Wilson program, but Gillingham is a very strong program. The Sunday program is Gillingham based, and it's a program that can be utilized in the classroom for both individual and group multisensory approach for reading intervention for our students. So this will be the first year that we're actually adopting it as a level of intervention and support for our students here in Verona. And we think it's going to be a nice addition for our teachers in the classroom.
And I just had a quick, I just wanted to say a shout out to Resolution 33 to the Alvin Stone Care Company and Community Services for providing, donating bins and dollies to the district. So I want to give a shout out to them. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, let's call the roll.
Mr. Day?
Aye.
Mrs. Bernardino?
Yes, no on number 8.
Mr. Elliott?
Aye.
And Mrs. Bresky?
Aye.
Mr. Quattro?
Aye. Okay, that concludes the board's business for tonight. Do we have any public comment or any questions?
Hi.
Good evening, Pam Prisco. Is it an address? 42 Avenue, Verona. I have a quick question regarding the personnel, the new hire, for the guidance department in high school. Is she going to be just a guidance counselor or somebody replacing Carlisle as the director?
She will actually be a guidance counselor. So we currently have, prior to Ms. Ferlato resigning, we had 3 counselors for this 18-19 year, plus Ms. Ferlato, who had called about half a caseload of students. We did post the position to replace Ms. Ferlato. At this stage of the summer, we're not really satisfied with the candidate pool. We do believe that we have a candidate that has interest internally to be a lead counselor. We did post a lead counselor position, and we are going to be meeting with the VEA on Thursday for negotiations to come to an agreement on the stipend for that position. So this is an additional counseling position to maintain the number of counselors in the department. So we maintain the counselor to student ratio, because without the addition of that fourth staff member, the ratio of counselor to student is 1 to 300. So one counselor for 300 students, and we just don't feel comfortable with that ratio because we cannot provide the level of personalization to our students and our families with that many counselors. It's just impossible for a counselor to do that. The National Counseling Association recommendation, maximum recommendation is 1 to 250, 1 student to 250 students. Right now with 4 counselors, we're at about 1 to 225, 230. We do have a larger class, student enrollment at the high school now than we did a number of years ago. So our student population now at the high school is slightly north of 700, and just 4 years ago, we were probably at about 620. So it's a
No, it's
significant
happy to
increase.
see that there was someone being hired, because I hadn't seen that, and with all the new turnovers in the guidance department, it's a big adjustment for the students in high school, especially with colleges and all that. So thank you. My other question is for the new hire for the supervisor for the humanities department. Can that be something we kind of hold off on as a hire rate, or is it something that needs to be hired right away? Is it something that can be shared through other supervisors, so we can kind of maybe save that $113,000 in this year's budget, instead of, cutting more teachers or staff? And no,
Well, we're not
that's
cutting,
the question.
we're not cutting any more teachers, right?
Well, no,
That's-
from the last budget.
Right, and in the last budget, the classes, and Dr. Dionisio could send, what the helpful, he sends out what the effects were of the cuts, but the cuts were largely where there wasn't enrollment in certain courses, right? So, in terms of the supervisors though, you can answer the question on the merits of the thing, but the progress that we've made as a school district by having supervisory attention, from grades K through 12, and the continuity that provides has moved this place forward a lot. The current supervisor, there's a math supervisor, there's a special education supervisor, and there's humanities. It's only 3. And each one of those covers grades K through 12, and then especially at the elementaries, left to right.
Yeah.
In all programs. And also, not only supervisor but evaluate staff, and then as part of professional development. So it is a pretty important role to fill.
Yeah, I'll be recommending to the board, we did post a position. Dr. Banjo will be with us for 60 days from her date of resignation. It is a critical role, and you go into other districts and they have a supervisor for each department, a world language, a math, a social studies. Dr. Banjo oversees 3 departments, K through 12, as Mr. Quattrochi had mentioned, and that encompasses walkthrough observations. In the new magazine, you can see and read an article all about our walkthrough observations. It's professional development at the elementary, middle school, and high school level work, which is really driving the place forward. And she's done a great job, and we're confident that we'll be able to find somebody. It is something that, as you bring it up as, as a district and the board looking at cost-saving measures, we're always looking at those things, but we also have to balance out, what are we getting and what's the value, and what kind of detrimental effect it would have, and that's not something that I would recommend at this point. I would recommend replacing that position. So I'll be hopefully recommending a staff member to the district within the coming weeks, and because it's an administrator, there will be a meet and greet with the Board of Ed before that person comes to a formal resolution.
Thank you.
And by the way, that posting is open to internal staff that he already to apply. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close tonight's meeting. Our next meeting is Tuesday, September 11th. We have a confidential session at 6 p.m. and a public meeting following here at 7.